Hi, I'm Ray from the Radio Workshop. Okay, we're back to medium wave pirating in the 60s and early 70s. I've made a couple of videos that seem to be quite popular, and I've just got another story that I've got to tell you, because it involves a lady in her 90s, several transmitters, all sorts of fun on a Sunday, because all the pirate stations went on the air on a Sunday. It was just a done thing back in the 60s. So where do I start? The first thing about pirating is don't get caught. So you got to transmit from somewhere. It was usually a house. You have to have an aerial, quite a decent aerial outside and down the back garden or wherever, which can be seen. The GPO in their Morris 1000 van, they'd DF you, had direction finding gear, so they know where you're coming from at least, and they'll drive towards that. The stronger the signal, and they'd find the house and they'd knock on the door and you're busted. The trouble is they know your name and address. They take your gear, your transmitter, associated equipment. So the thing is, it's a cold cup of coffee. I'll make some more in a minute. That's the first thing. Don't get caught. So how do you go about that? How do you not get caught? Well, someone came up with a bright idea of two transmitters, okay, both on the same frequency, or medium wave, both crystal controlled, one that side of town and one that side of town. Now, we switch them both on at the same time, and although they're on the same frequency, you get this kind of, as they're going like in and out of phase a little bit, you get this noise, this effect, kind of whoa, 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 like that. Rather weird effect. Good fun though, but that's not the effect we wanted. We put the crystals in crystal ovens to stabilise them. We had this HT supply was stabilised. We did all we could, but they were still just slightly drifting in and out of phase and making this weird effect, this weird noise. So it wasn't that noticeable, but it was annoying. And wherever you were in the town, it kind of changed. That transmitter was stronger signal than that one, or the other way round, and it was a weird effect, and it wasn't really very nice to listen to. So what was the answer? The idea was to, if you like, throw the GPO off the scent. You know, they're DFing, they've got a signal that way, they've got a signal that way. Of course, it wasn't brilliant, because they're just going to say, okay, well, let's go for this signal. They'd realise straight away there's two transmitters. Let's go and bust this lot. Okay, and if they're still on later, we'll go and bust that lot. So what was the answer? That wasn't the answer. Two transmitters on at the same time. Then someone said, well, let's have that transmitter on for say 20 minutes. Okay, that switches off and that one goes on for 20 minutes. So they're just getting near to this one. Okay, it goes off the air, and the one the other side of town comes on. So they've got to go all the way back across town. Then that one goes off, and so on. Now that idea was pretty good, and it did work. What happened was, at the end of a certain record, okay, this is the transmitter here, the one that's on the air. At the end of a certain record, transmitter off, tape recorder off. The chap on the other transmitter, he's ready, he's listening to this, he hears that, like, the record ends, HT on the, it's all warmed up ready, HT on the transmitter on, play on the tape recorder, the next record starts, and there's barely a gap, and it worked well. The only trouble is, we thought, well, 20 minutes is rather a long time. If the GPO are in town, they might actually get there in 20 minutes. It's quite a long time. So then off we went. Let's have three transmitters. So we did that. Same system. That one came on, I think it was 15 minutes this time. At the end of a certain record, the second transmitter, he'd be ready. Transmitter on, play on the tape recorder. That would carry on. 15 minutes later, end of a certain record, the third transmitter, he's ready, same thing, and so it goes on. We ended up, I think, was it 5 or 6 transmitters around the town? Crazy, but it all worked. So we've got 5 or 6 transmitters all in sequence, and each one was only on for something like 10 minutes. So yeah, that wasn't really long enough to do any direction finding. anyone trying to track it down, they might get close, but 10 minutes, well 10 minutes if you're at the dentist having a tooth drilled seems like hours. If you're direction finding a station in your GPO van, you know, it seems like 2 minutes. So that was pretty good. It worked, switching from that transmitter to that one, then that one, then that one, all like this sequence went on. That was great. Driving around the town listening to this, you couldn't really tell. You know, various people were listening around the town, driving around and whatever, and all kind of making notes. You couldn't. Sometimes you'd hear a little bit of a gap as the switchover happened. Sometimes the switchover would overlap a little bit, which was better in a way, because you didn't, you know, the carrier didn't drop, and it worked well. In fact, one chap was driving around and he saw the GPO van. It was pretty distinctive. We all knew what it looked like. So he followed it at a safe distance. He followed this van, and of course they get so far and they stop, and you could see the lads in it sort of pointing this way and pointing that way. So they turned round, off they went in that direction. They're obviously now after that transmitter. So safe distance again. He followed them, and they stopped 10 minutes later. They're kind of pointing that way, and they were going round in circles. And you know, he was telling us this later that evening in the pub. Absolutely brilliant. So it really was cat and mouse. The mistake we made was one weekend. What we did was the transmitters was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, whatever, then back to 1. So what the GPO lads did, I mean, they weren't daft. They thought, okay, we'll hang around here because this one's going to come back on. They got so near to it, a certain distance. Hang around. It'll come on again in a minute, or when, you know, not in a minute, but after the others have all had their go. And luckily we had some lookouts and they were seen. So we changed the sequence. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then back to 1, it was sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then perhaps 3, 4, 2, 6, 1. So it was all changing around. All it was, the tape recorder side of it was quite straightforward. We basically had 7-inch tapes, the reel-to-reel tapes. Everyone had a copy of the same tape, and all they did was, you know, you turn yours off. You've done your 10 minutes, so you wind the tape on. You know on the counter where the next one is. This was the easiest way to do it, rather than sort of make separate 10-minute slots. Everyone had the whole program on tape. You just go to the end of the record, which, you know, you look on your list. Right, it's the end of Ichiku Park by the Small Faces. That's when I come on the air. So you set your tape to the end of that record and you're ready to go. And as I say, it all worked pretty well. The only thing is, all these transmitters were low power. We didn't, you know, there was a group of lads that had high power stuff. You know, they were running hundreds of watts, which was a bit silly, really. Well, I thought it was. I think we had perhaps 15, 20 watts, something like that. Perhaps only 10 watts on some of the transmitters. Each little transmitter, you know, everyone spent hours building them. Or I think it was 5 or 6, I can't remember, it must have been 6. They're all the same. We built them all identical, so they look good. I don't know why, but you'd line them all up and they all look good. So yeah, this worked very well. We weren't on the air sort of every weekend for years. You know, this is only a few weeks. I think we left a gap of a few months and then did another few weekends. Just otherwise we would have been caught in the end. So it all worked very well. No one got caught. The GPO van, this little Morris 1000 van, was going round in circles on a Sunday, because in those days no mobile phones. This is before CB radio, so there was nothing. You know, all you could do is if you saw the van, stop at the nearest phone box and go and phone whoever it was. You know, they're heading your way, sort of thing. So that made it awkward. We did later on have radio telephones. That's another story. But a friend of mine down in Southampton, he did some buying and selling from the MOD and all this sort of thing. Anyway, he got a load of the old Pi Westminster radio telephones used by the, you know, like the utilities like Water Board, Electricity Company, Gas Board. and I bought three. I think it was three of those from him, which was quite good. But that's another story. I had one in my car, one in my wife's car, and one at home, and no one ever used this frequency. I used to monitor it, you know, all the time, and it was great. It was a private radio telephone between my wife, you know, our two cars, and myself. It was great. But anyway, we didn't have any sort of communication while we're pirating. This was before all that, so we just had to sort of keep our eyes open and be careful. So now we come to the old lady. I shall call my friend Harry. It was Harry's granny. Okay, she was in her 90s, early 90s. She reminded me of, I don't know whether you've seen the Miss Marple films. Miss Marple comes across as a silly sort of doddering old lady, but she's actually quite astute, quite a clever woman. And Harry's granny was like that. She came across as a daft old woman, but she was actually pretty astute. So one of the transmitters was at Harry's granny's house. You know, she was game for anything. He'd said to her, you know, what was going on. Can I use your house, you know, for the transmitter on next Sunday, sort of thing? Oh yeah, great. She's all pirate radio. Oh, I like that. She loved that idea. So what happened? Whenever we were on, her house, you know, was one of the sites that we used. She was all right with it, and you know, she loved the idea. So that was great. It worked, and we changed around in sequence. When I say we, I don't mean, I had nothing to do with any of this. As I've explained in other videos, I was purely observing, just an observer. Wasn't involved at all in any illegal activities. Right, that's the disclaimer. So Harry's granny was brilliant. What happened was, the GPO, they obviously got pretty clever. They knew what was going on and all this sequence changing of transmitters, etc. And they ended up at Granny's house. Okay, now she lived not in the middle of nowhere, but where she lived, it was a detached house, and it was sort of quite separate. It was up the hill. That's one of the reasons that it was such a good site. It was up the hill, and they turned up outside and knocked on the door. Now Harry upstairs, he saw them coming up the hill, shouted down to Granny, GPO are here. She knew this, you know, he told her all about it. You know, we used to pile around there and, you know, with the aerials and stuff like that, and she'd make us tea and bring out sandwiches and stuff. It was great fun. So Harry switches off the transmitter, hauls the aerial in from the back garden through the bedroom window. Okay, and that's that. The GPO lads are walking around outside. So Harry's granny, she told us all about this later. She goes out there, who are you? What do you want? Who are you men? You know, all this. Oh, I know where the GPO, that they had ID and stuff like that. And you know, they explain what they were doing, that there's a illegal radio station, a pirate radio. So apparently she was saying, pirates? Are we being attacked by pirates? Have they got a ship? Where's their ship? Perhaps we should call the police. She's doing all this daft business. And because Harry's upstairs listening to this as well, and they're saying, no, it's not pirates, ships, it's illegal radio, what they call pirate radio. Pirates? Oh, I don't want pirates near my house. Anyway, in the end, they obviously realised, well, not realised, that they thought, well, this isn't the place. She's not what we're looking for, you know, she's just some balmy old lady. So that was absolutely brilliant. We all went round there. Next time we were around there, she's telling us all about it. She's making coffee and sandwiches. She loved it all. Yeah, we couldn't use her house again because then it would have been a bit obvious, and yeah, we obviously didn't want to get her into trouble. So that was Harry's granny in her 90s. Oh, I must just add that it was the same DJ that we had throughout the whole programme. You didn't want different people coming on every time a transmitter changed, so the transitions, I suppose, put it that way, between each switch over to various transmitters was almost seamless. You wouldn't know unless you were listening. Depending where you were in town, you know, the signal would be a little bit stronger or go a little bit weaker if that transmitter's on and all that. So it really did work well. No one got caught. It was all good fun. As I say, low power transmitters. I've got some fresh coffee now. The reason that Granny nearly got busted is because what the GPO, this is what we assumed afterwards, what they must have done is thought, okay, let's concentrate on one transmitter. So they get close to it, they wait, it comes back on the air, they get a bit closer, then the next weekend, possibly, if they're around, they go back to that spot, they get a bit closer, and they ended up the hill at Granny's house. That's how Granny almost got busted. Imagine that in the paper, you know, 90-year-old woman done for pirate radio. Oh dear. Happy days. So yeah, that's what happened. I mean, we didn't sort of bother much after Granny nearly got caught. We didn't bother much. We went on for the odd weekend, but you know, we'd done it. That was the point. We tried it all out. We tried the 6 transmitters. I think it was 6, and it was all good fun. There we are. I'm gonna have some coffee. One of the lads involved, he liked everything done sort of military style. He wasn't in the military or anything at all, but he set up this unit, the aerial decoy unit, the ADU he called it, where he and a couple of his mates, that they were the ADU. And I'll never forget, he was crazy. They go around putting up decoy aerials at night, you know, in the dead of night. This is Saturday night before the Sunday morning sort of transmissions. They go stringing wires across roads, like on the way to a transmitter site. So if you're going that way towards the transmitter, then the GPO would see, oh look, there's a wire, that must be it, and it would put them off. It would waste their time because they've only got 10 minutes. It was a good idea, but the bloke was balmy. You know, he thought he was in the army, and there we are. Happy days. Anyway, I've got to get on with this customer's radio. Look at that. I've done the cabinet. It's a Bush DAC-90A. Do a lot of these. That's all done. Just about done the chassis. No pirates to listen to. Long and medium wave, but no pirate stations to listen to anymore. Mind you, I've got a transmitter. No. That's something else. That's another story. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I love making these videos. I like the memories. You know, they all. As I start telling the story, I think, oh yeah, and that happened. Oh, that's right, and so happened. Yeah, so it all comes flooding back. There we are. Happy days. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.